Hi everybody and welcome to today's virtual tutorial. As always, really happy to be here and bring this to you for Creative Wellness Journey. My name's Emma Morrissey, and if you've seen these before, you'll know what it's all about. So today what I wanted to do was give you a little bit of a basic rundown on how to use soft pastel. So I've got a very old and much loved set here. It doesn't matter what type of set you have, whether it's smaller or larger than this, but this is what many sets will look like. So this is the chalky type of pastel, as I said, known as soft pastels. Sometimes they'll be in a square stick like this, sometimes they'll be round. And what we're going to do is we are going to do a little basic drawing of this. I don't know if my camera is going to focus very well on this, but this is just keeping to a few nice warm tones just to get you used to using soft pastels of a orange. As always, I'll make sure you have the link to this so that you can draw along with me. So one of the things to let you know about soft pastel is basically they are created with several different ingredients. So obviously you have your pigment, which gives you your colour. Then you'll have a binder which keeps its form, and some other bits and pieces in there as well. So it is chalky in texture. Very different to oil pastels, where I've also done a tutorial on. Oil pastels are sort of oilier and waxier, much harder. Soft pastels like this are really nice to blend with because they smudge very easily. But also working with that, it's really good to not blow on the dust when you want to sort of clear the page a little bit. It's best to just tap the page off because you don't want to, of course, breathe in any of that pastel dust. Okay, so one of the things I would suggest you do first is, if you have a pencil, any pencil will do, just do a basic outline sketch of your orange. I'm going to go straight in with mine, but don't feel that you have to do the same. And what you then want to do is, holding the image, is just to match some of the colours that you can see just by holding them up to either your phone or desktop, or if you're printing this out and you're looking at it on paper. Obviously bear in mind that it's going to look different on your screens than it is in front of me. And also don't worry if you don't have all of the colours available to you. Just pick the colours that you can sort of match as best as you can. Okay, so I've got quite a few here. As I said, this is quite a good set. It gives me lots of different tones of various colours. As you can see, this is more or less various different tones of orange. And then here, for example, we've got lots of different tones and shades of blue. So you can get some sets like this, or you can get some that are a lot more basic, that would just give you your basic sort of 10 or 12 colours. Okay, and you can work just as well with those. It might just mean that you have to do a little bit more shading, but I will talk you through that. So I'm going to use these warm tones here. Okay, and looking at this, what I'm going to do to start with is just using quite a light pale pastel. So if you don't have one this sort of skin tone, do not worry. If you just use a light-ish colour, so if you've got yellow, absolutely use that. As I said, if you want to do a basic outline in pencil first, you can, or if you want to go straight into it with me, that's fine as well. Alright, so what I've done is I've basically just gone in the centre here, and then I've worked anti-clockwise just to put in some of the basic shapes. What I'm going to do using my finger. Now you can use a little smudging tool or a piece of tissue if you want to. You can get smudging tools, which you may have seen in some of my pencil tutorials. But you can equally use something like a cotton bud if you don't want to use your fingers. Okay, and then all you want to do is just start building it up and just apply a little bit more pressure. And just blend as you go. So with pretty much each layer you do, you want to just lightly blend. Alright, so I'm going to add a little bit here. And then I'm just going to blend it with my finger like that. Now obviously I'm going to start layering the various different warm tones here. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with this sort of quite bright yellow. And you just want to dart your gaze backwards and forwards between the image and your drawing. And something else you might notice as you start working with these various colours is that some will smudge easier than others, and that's because some have got more pigment, which is your colour, which in this form will be that sort of chalky dust, than binder. And of course the binder is what keeps everything together, so some of the pastels that have more pigment will be chalkier and dustier, so they'll smudge more, and some that have got more binder will be much harder. Alright, so they won't all feel exactly the same, but that's quite common. Alright, and I'm just going to start building up these colours. Something else also that you might quite like, depending on how you like to build your artwork, is if you like to create something that looks quite specific and quite detailed, you might like to consider something known as pastel pencils. Now, as you might imagine from the name, they are basically a pencil with your soft pastel in them, so you can get a lot more detail in. So they're quite nice if you want to do more realist studies. But for now, as this is just a nice basic tutorial, these are a wonderful way to go, just to use your basic soft pastel. Alright, so I'm just going to work now, just work your way around from one bit to the next and just do a little bit of smudging as you go. You'll notice I'm not tapping off any of the dust, but I'm also not blowing any of the dust. I'm just lightly brushing it off using a clean finger. So something else I suggest if you are going to use your fingers to smudge with is make sure that you sort of tend to smudge with one finger. So if you're working with all the same sort of tones, which is very lucky with this particular piece that we're doing today, then you can pretty much do all of it with one finger. If you're doing a piece where you've got dark tones and light tones, you might want to have dark tones, light tones, and then keep at least one finger clean so you can just brush some of it away without smudging your page. Okay, so that's one of my little top tips. And also you'll notice this little half piece behind has just disappeared a bit, so I'm just going to pop this back in, re-smudge. Okay, and the aim of this is just to build everything up a little bit. Don't worry if you do lose definition, because this is normal. And also we're just experimenting at this stage. So again, something, just going back to what I said a second ago, obviously here I was using quite a dark orange here, so I don't want to transmit that over here, so I'm going to move to a different finger. Let's try this one. So it just helps you to bear in mind if you're using your hands completely as smudging tools, so that you don't sort of smudge the wrong area. Alright, so it's something you can be quite mindful of. Okay, so I'm just going to build this up a little bit at a time, and obviously if you do have a set of pastels that's got sort of one of each colour, so you might have an orange, a yellow and a red, then what I'd recommend is you use an orange and a yellow, and you use a little amount of red, and then you can just start to smudge out, and you can make it look lighter by putting white on top of it. That will really help sort of give that layered impression as well. I'm going to put this colour right in the centre, and you just want to keep building it up and keep darting your gaze backwards and forwards so that you can see any other areas that need sort of developing. I'm going to use this dark one here just to give this indication of a little bit of shadow behind this one that's in front. So this is what sort of gives you a little bit of depth in your composition, because now we can see that this one's definitely in front of this one because we have a little cast shadow here. And the same applies to this one over here. So just experiment with the various different colours you have. Even if you just have, you know, your very basic colours, you can still do a lot with them. And we can see there's a cast shadow just here, so I'm going to pop that in. And with your darker colours, you won't need a lot, you just need a little line, and then you can just smudge away and have your cast shadow. Alright. There we go, so it's already starting to form a little bit. I'm going to bring this in to the centre a little bit more. I want a little bit more definition. Just keep building it up. Keep smudging with each layer. Little bit at a time. Okay, so it's building up the composition. You're layering the various different colours that you have available. I'm also going to go in with a slightly darker brown. So if you have a brown of any sort, that will absolutely work well. If you have just one tone of brown and you want to make it lighter, I'll show you how you can do that in a minute. Obviously, as I said, depending on what colours you have available. So if, let's say, this is the only brown you have, let's put a bit of it here, smudge it, and if you want to make it a little bit lighter, if you've got white in your set, put a bit of white on top of it, and that lightens it. So I'm just going to put the original brown next to it, just so you can see the difference in those two tones. Alright, so you can see this one's much darker than that one. And again, using the same brown, so if this is like the only brown you have available to you, and you want to make that an even darker brown, if you have a black in your set, which will be pretty standard, just mix a little bit of black into that. You've got an even darker version of that brown, and that applies to every colour. Okay, so let's do the same with an orange. Let's put orange here. I'm going to do 3 lots of it. Okay, and I'm going to do a 4th one here just so you can see the original. So this one, bear in mind I have dirty fingers now, but I'm just going to show you a little trick. So if I make all of these the same colour-ish, then you'll get an idea. Right, so as this one's got a little bit of my pastel stain on it, I'm going to put a little bit of black on this one. Alright, so that one, so if you want shade, you add a bit of black. I'm going to add a little bit of grey to this one. Smudging with a different finger now. There we go, a little bit of grey. And then a little bit of white in this one. This gives you a highlight. And of course this is your original colour. So you've got 3 slightly different, let's put a little bit more brown on, grey on that one there. So there we go. We've got the same pastel. So this is orange. So this, as I said, it might be that you just have one particular type of orange and you don't have all these different tones that I've got here. So if you've got one orange, this is it in its original colour. This is a highlighted version of this with white. This is a tonal version of this with grey. And this is a shaded version of this with a little amount of black. So that is how you can get various highlights, tones and shades of the same colour, any colour you're using. So if you do have a very limited set of colours, this is how you can work with them. Okay, so I thought I would show you that just so that you have a little bit more detail on how to work with colour. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of detail to this flower here because I just want it to come forward a little bit, so as we can see it's sort of in front of these two pieces here. So I just want to give that idea that it is actually in the front. Okay, but I've done that just with a few very sort of wispy lines. So this is sort of a soft pastel version of this lovely image here. And again, as I said, I'll make sure that you have the link to this so you can either print it out or look at it on your screens. So as you'll probably also notice, soft pastel is a very sort of delicate, almost dream-like medium to work with. So when you start smudging with it and layering, you get this really soft, dreamy sort of feel, which is really quite nice to work with, especially if you want to create a piece of artwork which has got that kind of slightly impressionistic, dreamy sort of feel to it. You don't want it to be too solid. You want it to, you know, look like an art piece. Then you can get lovely, beautiful effects with it because it is very soft and delicate. Also, as I said, if you're someone who likes to do very detailed work, then you might want to look at pastel pencils because you can get the detail. Obviously, if you go to sharpen them, because they do have the chalky pastel in the middle of them, you've got to be a little bit careful when you sharpen them, but they are wonderful to work with. So I hope that you have found this tutorial helpful and interesting. And I will see you again soon for another virtual art tutorial.